Ark Beyond Ascension Part 7. Hello everyone and welcome back to our journey. Now we ended off our previous journey by essentially failing at taming an Archie, and when we started off this journey, we were so surprised that Blueberry just took a giant poop. He was that shocked. He literally crapped himself because we found a level 130 Archie. And no, that is not game breaking and it's not max level, but after the mistake, we're going to call it a mistake we had in the last episode, I was just grateful to find something above level 100. And by grateful and surprised, I mean it took us like 2 hours off camera trying to find this guy. But we eventually do find him, and we tame him, and, well, we have another mistake. A really, really bad one. Look very carefully at what happens when I go through and knock this creature out. I'll even play it in slow-mo for you. Yep, that's right. Captain Crappy went through and threw a giant pile of dung. So we punched him in the face, because originally I thought he just ruined the taming effectiveness. But nope, he didn't ruin the effectiveness. The HP was so low on the RG that pile of dung actually killed it. So the level 130 bird was no more. All those hours trying to get this guy to spawn, getting him to come all the way over here, and Captain Crappy literally took a poop on him. Yep, that's how we started our journey today, guys. So, needless to say, we still needed an RG because the RG was going to open up the world for us. We needed to have accessibility to more things. Anything and everything we needed to do, we needed an RG. But I was going to punish Captain Crappy. I was a little upset, so I tried throwing him in here, but he was being a stubborn little rascal. So finally I managed to get him in a cage here. Yes, this is a box of shame. We are shaming him. We are disappointed. He just made our lives so much more difficult. And then I felt bad as a parent or a father or a master, and I decided he needed more berries because I didn't want him to starve, because I was mad, but I didn't want to lose him because I actually kind of appreciated his poop slinging skills. So we did leave him in the box of shame. We went through and repaired our trap so we could go through and try this again, a third time. And I looked at the sun, hoping and praying that Ark would just be nice to us and allow us to tame this Archie, as I was ready to move on to bigger and greater things, and our progression had been significantly halted due to the lack of an Archie. So the search continued. We went through and inspected any and every single Archie that we could find in the sky, on the ground, battling, or doing anything and everything, and we just couldn't find one until we finally did. We found a level 115 RG on the far, far side of the island, literally as far as you could possibly be from our trap, but eventually we did manage to go through and bait him over here, put him back in the trap, and we went through and we trapped him, and we knocked him out, and Captain Crappy was not here to ruin it. And I was pretty happy, but we did go through and we would need a couple of things. One, we needed some meat, and two, we were not going to make the same mistake we did last time. We needed a saddle. So with that being said, I worked my way back on over to the base with Blueberry, and I realized I had all the chitin in the world I would need, and I was not going to go through and just be stubborn trying to get it on the island without having to leave. So I went through and I grabbed the chitin that we had here back at the base, put it all in my inventory, crafted up an RG saddle, and made my way back. But on the way back, I did go through and find a drop just outside my base, so I figured I would check it out before I headed on over. And wow, what incredible timing it was. It gave me 3 whole pieces of raw mutton, so I was pretty stoked about that, as it's technically better than raw prime meat for the RG. So this was actually really good timing. So we continued to make our way back over to the island, and hoping this was going to be a decent, successful tame. But I realized 3 mutton may not be enough. I wasn't sure, since taming is, I think 1.5 is what I have it set to. So I went through and I killed a couple more RGs using Blueberry as bait, and I brought them all over to our sacred island and chopped them all up. And I killed 2 RGs, and each one literally gave me 1 piece of prime meat. And at the end of everything, once he had everything in his inventory, he actually was at 95% taming, so he was just shy of being our new best bud. So I just gave him a stack of regular meat because I was feeling a bit lazy, and I went over to another drop to see if this thing had any goodies in it. And as I was making my way over, he finished taming. He was now our best friend. So when we got back, we were going to put a saddle on him, but I found a whole bunch of good stuff in this drop. But I figured Blueberry needed to eat, as he was actually starving after this journey to the drop, and most likely this will be the last time you guys will probably see me using Blueberry for a little bit. Not because he's done anything wrong. He's been the perfect bird, but because I literally need an RG to do everything. I need him for crystal, metal, taming, So yeah, Blueberry is going to get a much deserved rest, and our new RG friend is going to have to put in some serious work and live up to some very high expectations. Now, when I got back home, I did have quite a bit of chores to do. I was basically completely out of food and I almost starved, which is again why I needed an RG, because I wanted to go through and start working on some higher end stuff. I wanted to be able to build some high-end stuff, so I looked if that was even possible. And it wasn't. It was absolutely not possible. I basically had virtually no metal or crystal to my name. Literally, basically nothing. I could not do much of anything. So I decided we were going to take a journey to the mountain. We were going to head on over to the mountain near Carno Island and hope that we actually were able to get some decent metal and crystal harvests. And potentially we would be stopping at the beaver location on the way back, so hopefully we could get some cementing paste as well. Now the goal here essentially was to go through and be able to farm up enough metal and crystal to be able to build a greenhouse. In the greenhouse, I'm going to be able to go through and use essentially to make kibble with the crop, so I can go through and start taming some of the higher level resource dinos. So that was the whole goal here. And honestly, the journey was kind of uneventful. Broke the crystal, broke the metal. There was like literally nothing bad up here. I don't know what happened, but there was no Carnos, no Raptors, no Rexes, no Gigas. There was just a Stego. That's pretty much it. So it's pretty peaceful, pretty quiet, and yeah, I don't know if the game was just messing with me and waiting to let me fail in the future, but yeah, it was pretty easy. Now RGs are quite slow, so this was a long journey back, especially considering that I decided to pack him nearly as full as he could be. And then I decided I was going to stop in at the Oasis on the way back, looking for some cemented paste, but there was actually only one beaver dam, and this beaver was adamant I was not going to take it. Look at him. He's literally just keeping it all to himself. He doesn't want to share. And I told him sharing is caring, so I relocated him to the water, gracefully. I thought about killing him, because he was trying to stop me from having what I wanted, but I was feeling awfully nice since everything in this game had been going my way so far. So yeah, I just took his stuff, hopped in the air, and dropped all the wood, because we were heavy as all could be. And we made our way back on over to the base, and then I got distracted, because, shiny squirrel, and I saw a loot drop. So we stopped down at the loot drop to see if we could get anything good out of this drop, and we actually found a couple more things. The main thing that I was happy about was the cementing paste, as we'd only found one beaver dam. And we would be needing more cementing paste to be able to go through and build a couple of things that I wanted. One was actually going to be able to build the greenhouse walls and the greenhouse pieces. And I also wanted to be able to build a potting plant from the DLC, so I can go through and start crafting up the potting plant and basically get a bunch more green added to our base, because our base was definitely lacking, and something we would be working on today as well. Now, when I got back to the base here, I went through and I immediately tossed all the metal in the smelter, as it was going to take quite a bit of time for all this stuff to break down, and I went back through and picked me up a fat stack of meat from the stuff I had cooked earlier, and this is why I wanted a fridge, because I was constantly having to wait on this meat to be cooked, and yeah, I hated that, because I was almost always starving or in a serious concern. And I said, enough is enough, it is time to progress. So I went through and I unlocked the fabricator, and I went to go build it, and we were able to finally build ourselves a fabricator, lined up beautifully with that pillar and the railing, if I do say so myself. Now with the fabricator, I wanted to go through and basically create a whole bunch of stuff, and then I realized that I had not unlocked a single recipe for the fabricator. And I had actually found the gas previously in the playthrough in a drop here, but I went through and I unlocked every single engram, as I was sitting on almost 2,000 different engram points. And then I made myself a fridge, because yeah, I need a fridge for all of those different pieces of jerky and the crops I had found. If I couldn't have a chemistry bench yet, I was at least going to go through and have a decent table to do some work on it. So I went through and I put that higher up here, so it looked a little bit nicer. And I threw everything back in there, because I was probably going to forget about it and not go back to it for a little while. But as you can see, there is quite a few stacks of charcoal. So we definitely need to start working on making some ammunition. The only problem has been is that I had 0 metal. And in case you're wondering, I actually threw the generator underneath the porch, so I didn't have to look at it. But sadly, I do still have to hear it. So I took out the RG and went to go make another metal trip and another crystal trip. But I ran into a Rex in the water, and I figured I would give it a go. He was actually only at level 25, and I must tell you, I was quite scared. I forgot that RGs and PTs can't go in the water, and I started to realize that the moment I got too close to the water. But thank goodness I did not get dismounted, or that would have been really, really bad. I was actually successful in killing the Rex, got myself some prime meat and a little bit of experience on the RG. Basically, I just boosted his weight because I knew I had a whole bunch of stuff to carry back, and I did not want to travel as slow as a snail through the sky. I didn't tame a Quetzal, I tamed an RG, so I at least wanted some decent-ish speed. And I went through and I basically beat up all the crystals and all the glass shatter and found myself a whole bunch of metal rocks. And then I saw the view from up here. Wow, what a spectacle it was. That looked fantastic up here, with there being absolutely nothing in the way of these obelisks. I mean, look at it. And then once we got done being in awe of the natural beauty that this island had to offer, we proceeded to head back home with the full burden of metal and crystal that we had. And my goodness, was it dark. There was no light over here whatsoever. Our base just seemed dark and gloomy. So I definitely plan to fix that in the future for the sake of this video, because it is dark as all can be. And just because, yeah, I don't like the dark. Not in the game. I want to see what I'm doing. But I realized I needed some wood. Since I didn't have any sort of light post right now, I was at least going to keep the furnaces burning so we can keep the charcoal production up. So I went back out and I proceeded to chop down every single tree that you could find here on this beach. And then we made our way back over to the forges here, and essentially we relit all of them. We loaded them all up with some wood, and it's going to go through and give us some heat, some light, and going to keep the metal and the charcoal production going. So yeah, we were making progress. And then this happened. Then I realized that we had had some friends who had died, and we had not paid tribute to these friends. So I went through and I made something for every single one of them. And now let's take a moment to recognize all of them. So first, if you weren't here from the beginning, we had Friend the Lystro, a great friend. We had Spike the Inkling, who we had raised from childhood. We had Talon the Raptor, who we had lost on the journey to the north. And then we had Big Bird, the RG, who never actually ended up getting named. He just ended up dying from my foolishness. And now there's 2 empty graves here, because knowing me, I'm probably going to do something dumb in the future. And if not, one of the creatures now that I have, a different creature that we do tame in the future, is probably going to die. So I'm sure we'll definitely need those signs, and probably many, many more to come. Now I looked at all my current creatures, starting with Blueberry, and recognizing and appreciating that each and every single one of them have helped me on this journey so far. Some definitely more than others. Yep, looking at you, Pete. I know what you did, sir. Yes, I do. And then Finny, who had been a great help. He's been here with us basically since the start, just after we got Friend. And then I went through and looked at our new best friend, our bird here. And then I went through and looked at our tiniest friend, who caused us a whole bunch of grief. But yeah, we still appreciated him, and we basically threw him on our back. And we just appreciated having each other. It was nice. Nothing was dying, which was fantastic. And then I decided, all right, it was time to get back to work. Now it's the daytime, so I started working on the greenhouse. So to go through and eliminate the basically flat concept of this whole thing, I actually went through and incorporated a couple of the triangle foundations to pull the entrance out a little bit. And then I went through and I placed some stairs, and I'm going to go through and actually fill this top location with the stone. It will not be staying this one, I promise you. By the time this whole build is over, this whole giant mess of a build is going to look pretty darn good. I'm pretty proud of it. I was pretty impressed. We managed to make this very garbage-looking build into something very spectacular. So as you can notice, I've actually got greenhouse walls on all 4 of the locations here. And I do have a mod on. Essentially, the mod just basically makes them extremely clear, because I don't like the foggy context of them. Well, you will notice on the other 3 sides that I have stone on the bottom, and then I have the windows on top, whereas on the very front, because I have the door, I actually have the glass on the bottom with the stone foundations there on the top. And I did go through and I tried the DLC 4 panes to see if I like it, and I did not like how it looked on the front. However, I did want a little bit of variety, so I actually went through on the inside after I realized that I hated it on the outside. And I chained the inside ones to have this. Essentially, it's the one on the back wall that's just staring at the cliff face, and the one over here where I'm not going to see too much, because I actually like how it looks on the inside. I just don't like how it looks on the outside. But the one up and above here, essentially I can see from my base, and the one on the front here, I kept as the modded version of the pane glass, so it looks very, very clear, and I can see directly into it. And then we ran out of crystal. I was just 2 pieces short of being able to have 300% on the greenhouse effect. So I went back up and I grabbed myself some crystal and some metal. And I also found an explorer note, which I realized I should just grab now because I'm probably going to forget about it later. And then I watched the rocks fall down the cliff, realizing that could have been me if I wasn't careful. So yeah, I was definitely trying to be careful. And I officially had finished the inside. I promise you this is going to look better in just a second. And I also had placed down some lights as well, but realized they were bright as all hell. So I turned them down to tone 1. And looking back at it, I might want to do tone 2, but check a look at this beauty. Look how good this looks now. It is clean. But alright, so let me go through and explain this to you. So essentially, if I could figure out how my HUD turned on, there you go. I had completely forgotten to turn my HUD on. You can see these are all at 300%. Every single one of them. And you can see the glass is actually far above us here, and the thatch, which looks super ugly, but I promise you, we are going to fix this. We are going to make it right, make it look pretty. But before we do that, look at the inside here. I essentially used the cosmetic on the front half, but I left the thatch on the back because I liked that it was on the back, where essentially all the other equipment was. I thought it kind of worked out really nicely. Now, if you go on the inside here, it's just a hot mess everywhere. But again, remember I mentioned, everything's at 300%. And if you look up top here, essentially in order to make it 300%, you needed these 3 ramps, these 3 ceilings, and then I basically needed these 6 that are directly below me, or technically the 5. Now, essentially all I do is I apply the skin to everything. And essentially it makes it all look the exact same, even though it's a different material. And yeah, look how clean that looks. And then I go through and do the exact same thing to the ceiling, except for the middle part. I actually kind of like how the glass looks up top. I like the natural light there. So I decided to keep that there, and I had forgot that piece. Now, if I make my way back out here to the bottom, you will actually notice, even though it has a cosmetic skin, it's simply just a skin. And yeah, it looks pretty darn good here, and if you work your way back on over, you can see that it is still at 300%. And then I realized, in the midst of everything, that I'd actually forgotten a couple of pillars with the cosmetic skin, as they completely stood out like a sore thumb. So I went through and I got those fixed up, because they were obviously blaring out there, and if anybody had noticed them previously, whoops, I'm sorry, I completely missed those. Now, as we close the doors on our house, we actually come to a close in this episode. If you enjoyed today's video, then please consider leaving a like and subscribing if you're not already. And hey, I would appreciate any and all feedback on this house and build down in the comments below.